I want to thank you for being here. This webinar series is about you and it's for you. I started doing this after Expo West was canceled. And I did this because I wanted to find ways to give you more runway, more bandwidth to grow and scale your brand. I wanted to do this, to provide this to you so that I can teach you the skills that you need to be successful today, tomorrow, and beyond. 80% of natural brands fail within the first year. I'm committed to change that. Retail is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You need to plan for sustainable long-term growth. You need to be thinking about how do I grow my brand today, tomorrow, and beyond, and be able to think about all the things that might throw you off. Now, granted, none of us thought about this virus, but I've been talking about for a long time how you need to build an online community to grow and scale your brand, and how you can leverage that online community to help you drive sales, not only on your own personal store, on your website, but in traditional retail, et cetera. And it's these strategies and online, and it's these strategies that you can leverage to help all your retail partners compete more effectively. So what is trade marketing? Trade marketing is everything required to get your product in the hands of a consumer, not to reward me for buying your product. Let me explain. If I go to the store and I'm going to buy your product anyhow, it was on my list, and you give me a discount, well, that's great for me, but it doesn't help you achieve your objective of introducing your product to a new customer. There are better ways to do that. So that's some of the stuff we're going to be talking about as we go through this. So why are we here today? I want to help give you more runway to grow and scale your brand. So 25% of a brand's gross sales are tied to their trade marketing. And yet 70 to 90% of those dollars are wasted or ineffective. Remember, not getting your product in the hands of the new shopper. We're going to help you fix that and help you improve your trade marketing ROI. So let me illustrate what this means. Here's a chart, a table I put together that you definitely want to check out. So let's say that your brand between $500,000 to $100 million on this table. So let's say your brand has $1 million in sales. And if 25% of your brand's gross sales are in trade marketing, it's about $250,000. Well, if 70% of those dollars are wasted, that's $175,000. 80% is $200,000, and 90% is $225,000. Now, what if we could help you improve some of your trade marketing ROI? What if we could give you a 10% improvement on the 70% figure? That's $17,500 that you can put back in your bank. So how would you use that money? Every slight improvement gives you more runway for sales growth, higher brand valuations, better terms when negotiating with investors, fuel for more innovation, greater support for mission-based causes, and it also makes your brand a lot more attractive to retailers as well as investors. And don't forget, these savings are going to compound over time. These savings, once if you think about it, once you learn these skills and you do better next year, well, then you're not going to make the same mistakes. And you're going to be able to continue to compound, continue to get better and better and better. This is how I help you maximize your trade marketing ROI. And remember, a talented category management expert can help you amplify the results and help you explode sales. So here's a quick video I put together. It's on my YouTube channel if you want to go back and watch it again to kind of illustrate why we're here and why this matters. 25% of your brand's gross sales are tied to your trade marketing, and yet over 70% of your promotional spending is wasted or ineffective. Trade marketing includes everything required to get your product on store shelves and into the hands of shoppers, including online. Retailers demand promotions and shoppers expect them. Maximizing your trade marketing ROI means more runway for sales growth, fuel for more innovation, and more. Managing promotions is challenging. Even big brands struggle with this, but you don't have their deep pockets. Your survival depends on you getting this right. You're tired of feeling like an ATM machine and wish you could scale faster. You know in your heart that the tired strategies everyone else uses won't help you stand out on a crowded shelf. The light bulb goes on. Learn from CEOs, industry thought leaders, and founders who candidly share their insider secrets and advice with you. Now you have an abundance of tools to manage your trade marketing. Retailers now look to you as the category leader because of your proven ability to drive sales with your brand. Now you have the skills to confidently grow and scale your brand. The future looks bright. Visit Brand Secrets and Strategies today. I hope you like that. Now, the reason this matters so much is according to Nielsen, if you can maximize your trade marketing ROI, you can 13x your trade spending, 13x your ROI from your trade spending. That's a lot of money to put back in your pocket. This is where you need to focus a lot of your efforts in terms of how do you not just reduce costs, but how do you drive more sales? How do you find more money to do the things that you need to do to scale your brand? So let's dig into the content. So, five top strategies to dramatically reduce deductions and save money. One, become an expert in your retailer. What are the objectives, rules, and goals of every retailer? You want to become a valued resource. And this is exactly why I created my free turnkey Salesforce strategies course. In this course, I talk about how to learn more about the customer. How do you find out more about them? How do you find out what's important to them, or what their objectives are, etc. So let's frame it this way. The shopper journey's changed. Shoppers have literally unlimited choices as it comes to where they spend their hard-earned money, and everyone's fighting for their attention. What you need to do, or what you should do, is help your retail partners remain relevant. And when I say relevant, what I'm getting at is how do you help your retailer compete more effectively against their competitive threats, including online? What strategies can you bring to them? And this is what retailers really want. Remember, in today's competitive environment, it demands advanced strategies that others overlook, especially in the natural channel. So you need to know your retail partner. So what does that mean? Two retailers are alike. So never forget that. When I was early in my career, I remember we used to customize presentations. So I'd take a presentation and I'd slap a retailer's logo on it, and it was customized to them. And then I'd change the logo, put a different logo on it, and then it was customized to them, right? Well, that's not really customizing. Don't forget that no two retailers are alike. You need to focus on what their needs are and customize your presentation to better meet their needs. You need to become an expert in the retailers, their strategies, the rules that they have for every category, segment, etc. Get to understand that and be thinking about how does your brand fit into that? Or how can you leverage what your brand does, the unique customer that you sell to, within those strategies? And what is the retailer's persona? What does the retailer want to be known as? You might hear the term, what is your avatar? That's what we're talking about here. What does the retailer want to be known for in the market that they serve with their customers? And always put the retailer first. Always, always, always. And never assume anything. Get to know them, ask questions, develop a relationship with them. Never, ever, ever apply a cookie cutter approach. This is what your competition's doing. If you can do these simple things, this is going to help you stand out on a crowded shelf. This is where you go from being another box on their shelf to become a valued, trusted, respected resource. Always ask questions. How do you improve the shopper journey? Think about it. If you're a shopper, how does your shopper shop the store? How does your shopper buy other products throughout the store? How can you help that retailer capitalize on your shopper to make it easier for them to want to go into the store and buy products? And then focus on the long-term relationship. Remember, this is a marathon, not a sprint. You'd be surprised at how many people you're going to bump into throughout your career that you knew at an earlier stage. And people that were bagging groceries when I was younger in this industry are now sometimes the VP of sales for a company. Get to know them, maintain those relationships. Become a value-added solution to your retailer. Stay ahead of trends. Let them know what's going on in other markets and in other categories. If you're a baby food company, pay attention to the dog food category. You might learn something that you could leverage with that retailer to help drive sales. And never forget that shoppers have virtually unlimited choices. If a shopper can't find what they want in that store, they'll simply go elsewhere. So, how do you help the retailer, your retail partner, keep those customers coming back again and again and again? And more importantly, be prepared for every retail appointment. Leverage each and every opportunity that you have with a retailer to educate them about the customer or some trends in the market or something about your brand or something about the customer that buys your products. So, what is the brand responsibility? Again, I covered this more in depth in the mini course, Turnkey Sales Store Strategies. So, you need to become an expert in your brand. You need to become an expert in your shopper, not the generic shopper, female head of household, 2.3 kids that I hear me talk about a lot. Is your customer social active? Do they like yoga? Are they a vegan? What kind of items do they like when they buy your product, etc.? Be a passionate ambassador for your brand. And then, of course, you want to make the shopping journey easy, as I mentioned. So, what does that mean? How do you make your products visually appealing? And sometimes that has to do with how do you display them on a shelf? How do you merchandise them on a promotion? How do you make them easier for the customer to find? How do you build excitement? Again, things that I cover in that free course, Turnkey Sales Store Strategies. Remember, retailers want insights, fact-based insights. I was a retailer once, I shared that. Brands used to come to me all the time and say, I need you to do this for me. I want my product merchandised here. I need this, I need this, I need this. Retailers are bombarded by that. Understand what the retailer wants. Take the time to step back and step into their shoes, kind of, and get to understand what is important to them from their perspective. Bring them those insights. They don't need the same canned, generic, top line information that every other brand shares. They need specific insights that they can't get from anyone else. And if you can provide those insights to them, then savvy retailers will bend over backwards to help you. And remember, you want to do this from the consumer's perspective. How does the consumer view their store? Not you, who's in the trenches. Sometimes we have blinders on. We're not looking at the store in the same way that customers do. How do their customers look at the store? How do they perceive the store? So this all starts with the customer and consistent brand messaging. So a big piece of that course, Turnkey Sales Store Strategies, is about consistent messaging. And what I mean by that is if I tell you a story and you tell someone else and they tell someone else and so on, by the time the story comes back around to me, it's virtually unrecognizable. What you need to do as a brand is you need to make sure that each and every person across every aspect of your sales funnel, your internal teams, your external teams, etc., understand your brand and can get excited about it and share the insights and what it's made of and not what's excuse me what it was made, but talk about your brand with the same passion and enthusiasm as the founder. This will differentiate you. Remember, big brands don't do this. In fact, most brands don't do this. This is the simple strategy that I use to push around P&G and Frito, etc. This is a strategy that will work for you. And remember, if you can leverage this at retail and you become more than just another package on their shelf, this is how you become a value-added resource. And if you can help retailers achieve what they want, more customers in their store, a reasonable profit, and competitive advantage. If you can help them achieve what they want, then they're going to bend over backwards and help you achieve what you want. More sales, better distribution, etc. Number two, be an expert in the category, competition, and retailers market. This is where you need to know your numbers. This is where you need to understand what the data is telling you. And I don't mean the canned top line data. So what I mean by that, and I've got a course about this, but true category management. So you hear a lot of people talking about category management, and that's a term that's overused in a lot of circles, unfortunately. I coined the term true category management because it gets back to the heart of what category management is. So category management came about as a way to weed out some of the inefficiencies and the excess costs from from brands going to retail. And the challenge is that a lot of the big brands today rely heavily on what I call push button category management. A bunch of tools where they put in a bunch of numbers, they press a button, and it comes out in a nice report. That's not going to differentiate you at shelf. True category management aligns the consumer, the shopper, with the numbers, and it understands why what happened happened. In other words, what activity drove sales a certain way? What are customers looking for? What do I need to do to get that product in front of the customer? This is what I talk about throughout the courses, etc., the podcast, the YouTube channel. You want to dig into this more, but what I'm getting at is true category management is going to differentiate your brand, and it's going to help you stand out on a crowd shelf. It's going to help convert you from an occasional product, from just another package on a retailer shop, to a valued resource, to a category leader. And I define a category leader as any brand willing and able to step up and help their retail partners grow sustainable sales with your unique customer that your product brings in. This is not a category captain. Category captain, let the big brands handle that. It's expensive. But as a category leader, I've been able to do more and spend less money to try to drive those sales, et cetera, as opposed to a category captain. And I've done this for my clients as well. This is the best way for you to lower your trade marketing, improve your trade marketing ROI, lower your trade marketing expenses, and help you get incremental distribution, et cetera. And remember, never, never, never commoditize your shoppers or your products. That's what the big brands do. That's their Achilles heel. If you can understand what's unique about the plant-based consumer that buys your product, for example, that's a lot different than saying a customer that just, what the generic plant-based customer would be. In other words, what are the nuances? Clean label, what does that mean, et cetera? So let me help frame this. And I use this illustration a lot because it's so powerful. So several years ago, I wrote an article for the 2016 category, a feature article for the 2016 Category Management Handbook. And Nielsen gave me access to all outlet data. That's a many, many, many billions of dollars, almost $1 trillion in sales. So total food sales are up 1.9%. Natural organic sales are up 11%. Natural organic sales represented only 7.7% of total U.S. food. And U.S. food, in the absence of natural organic, was only up 1.2%. Now, let me drive this point home. Total U.S. dairy was up 1.5%. Organic dairy is up 12.1%. Organic dairy represented only 9.8% of the total dairy sales. In the absence of natural organic, total dairy sales would only be up 0.5%. These numbers are even greater when you're talking about plant-based, gluten-free, et cetera. The moral of the story is this. Your products are doing more to drive sustainable sales across every category and every channel out there. And this is what retailers want. They want your customer in the store. So we want to talk about strategies that you can leverage to help the retailer appreciate and value you as a partner. So where do you start? Well, generically, you start at the category and you work your way down the category, the brand, et cetera. And you want to have something to compare yourself against to. Now, this is basic category management. What share of the category do I have in the account? What share do I have in the market? What share does the retailer have in the market, et cetera? And then how do you determine that? Are you up or down? How are you competing against the market, against other retailers, et cetera? And then you will start digging down. So in other words, start at the 30,000 foot view, as we say, and you drill down to the item level. Which items are doing more to drive sales in the category? Well, when I say know your numbers, I'm also talking about how does your brand impact other products without the store. So when you're talking about your numbers, understand not only just generically how the category is doing, but how do you look beyond a canned top line report? Now, here's an illustration of a canned ranking report. Big brands with deep pockets can buy distribution, can buy a lot of sales, can buy velocity. And so they may look good on a ranking report, but they may be pulling valuable dollars out of the category. And so what you want to focus on is what is your contribution, or what is the contribution from specific attributes that your brand sells? For example, gluten-free, plant-based, et cetera. And I talk about that in a lot of the different courses and whatnot. So the Pareto curve, I see this get used a lot. And this is something that distracts a lot of brands. So you're left to believe that your velocity is the only thing that matters to retailers. And that's not true, as I just illustrated. The Pareto curve, where this velocity conversation comes into effect, is the 80-20 rule. So your brand may be one of the brands that sells the least amount of sales in the category, but yet that item might be responsible for bigger sales across the rest of the category, across other categories as well. So you want to Pay attention to that and not get loaded into the Pareto curve, which overlooks key sales drivers. And I dig more into this in the courses and the podcast episodes, etc. So the better way is to focus on how your product drives sales, what's unique about your customer. And one of the best ways to do that is think about the market basket. What does your consumer buy when they check out of the store? How valuable is your customer when they check out? So, for example, an organic dairy buyer is going to buy organic spread, organic milk, organic, a bunch of other stuff. That's super premium products. When your customer checks out of their store, they will have spent more money than your mainstream counterpart, than the people that buy the generic products or the less expensive products. So you want to leverage that in your selling story. Now, this is key to maximize your sales and profits. Never, never, never farm this out. You need to make this a priority. Make your assortment and your promotional strategy a top priority. Understand what are those key drivers in your assortment strategy and your promotional strategy that are going to help you drive the most sales, reduce your trade spending, and help you, again, help the retailer compete more effectively. Number three, be prepared. Know your numbers to all the questions. Don't assume everything. I studied to become an accountant, a CPA in college, and I had to take a lot of law classes. And I remember constantly being told that a good lawyer never asks a question that they don't already know the answer to. Apply that same mindset here. In other words, if you're working with me, I'm a retailer, make sure that you're answering my questions long before I'm even asking them. Because if you're helping me, things I maybe not will not have thought of, that's helping me with my job. So it makes my job easier as a retailer. And I'm going to really appreciate what you're doing. So I'm going to give back. I'm going to help you succeed. So here's an example, seasonality. And I use the soup example. How does your product sell throughout the year? What are the things that impact your sales? What are the things that drive sales from one point of the year to another time of the year? Help the retailer understand that. So why what happened happened? When I was at Kimberly Clark, my boss used to say, why what happened happened. And what he meant by that is what are the things that were done to cause the sales to grow or to change or to whatever. And so what we're getting at here is if I lower the price, how does it impact my sales? How does it impact my sales not only in the category for my brand, but in the retailer as well? And then what is the lift? What is the incremental sales that I get from doing that, from doing that activity? And so you need to understand the promotional causals. Your causals are, what are the things that you do to impact sales? And you need to understand the relationship between them. So if I promote my product, I discount the price, I put it on a feature, on a display. How does that impact my sales over and above just having a price reduction at shelf? What are the things that are going to help me move the needle? The needle meaning in terms of sales. And then again, be able to compare that against the market. So if I did something in one account, how does that impact my brand at other accounts within the market? How does it impact the market, the category in the market? How does it impact the retailer in the market? And these are questions that you want to make sure that you're answering for your retail partner. Again, you need to make sure that you understand everything that impacts the sales, the numbers. And so in this illustration, you can see examples where a lot of different things are done at once. For example, temporary price reduction with a display, with a feature at the same time. How did that drive sales? And then more importantly, what was the long-term impact from that? Did I drive sales after the promotion was over? More information than we're going to cover here, but I dig more into it in other podcast episodes, courses, etc. So you'll definitely want to check those out. But these are the things you need to be thinking about. And if you can become an expert in how these things work with your brand, and also pay attention to how they work with other brands as well, now you can start putting together specific plans that reduce your deduction, reduce the amount of deductions you have because you know what to expect. So when you decide that you're going to promote your brand with a retailer, you can tell the retailer how much product they need to have on hand so they don't have out of stocks. You can make sure they've got enough product on hand so that when after the promotion's over, that they don't have any backstock, or that you can also help them identify what are the other items that people buy when they buy your product. Now, I'll give you an example why this matters. Many, many years ago, when I was doing this for a big brand, our biggest competitor at the time would have a big promotion at the end of the year. Well, I studied this stuff. I became an expert in this stuff, and I knew that that's what they did. So what I did is I scheduled our promotions before theirs. And what I did is I had deep promotions. I put a lot of emphasis into that, made sure the retailers had everything they needed, et cetera, so that I capitalized each and every sales opportunity. Now, what happened was when the other retailer had their promotion, well, customers already had a pantry full of our products. For example, toilet paper, which today people are having a hard time getting. But the point was, they had so much of our toilet paper that they couldn't go out and buy the toilet paper from P&G, et cetera. These are the kind of things that you need to leverage shelf. And if you can do this effectively, again, this helps reduce your deductions. So, number four, be specific and clear in your communication. Be precise. Be very detail oriented. This is where the rubber hits the road, so to speak. This is where it matters in terms of how you communicate with your retail partners. So, what is a promotional agreement? A promotional agreement is a contract. In other words, I'm going to do something and then you're going to give me something in exchange for it. So I'm going to pay you, I'm going to reduce the price, et cetera. You're going to put my product on a promotion, you're going to display it on this end cap, everything that you've got that you would think about in a normal promotion. That should be in writing. And you should be able to hold the retailer accountable to what's actually going on. So remember the example I shared with you a while back about how a certain retailer used to deduct for everything. This is where I was able to hold them accountable the most. In other words, I had a piece of paper, a contract that said, here's when you get the ROI. OI. Here's where I'm going to pay for the scan down. Here's where I'm going to all that other stuff. This is how much product you need to bring in. This is when you can start bringing in at that price, et cetera. And what I found was the retailer was doing things outside of the contract. And so when I was able to hold their feet to the fire, so to speak, I was able to get them to reduce their menu fees, get them to reduce some of their promotional costs. And that's a whole nother conversation. But bottom line was, I was able to get them to change their strategy in terms of how they worked with us in terms of going to retail. Because I'll give you a taste of it now. They were more expensive to do business with than the other retailers in the market. And because I had this wealth of information, I was able to leverage it with them and said, hey, you know what, we can promote more efficiently with your competitor down the street. We need you to stop deducting for things that don't make sense so that we can focus on driving your sales. And that's really what you want to get to. You want to be able to go to your retailer and say, you have a choice. You can continue deducting a bunch of stuff that doesn't make sense, that I have to spend hours and hours researching and challenging, or you can work with me, partner with me, and help me help you drive sales, because ultimately that's what we're here for. So to gain a competitive advantage, you need to have a solid business plan. Now, this particular course is free. Sales success begins with a solid business plan. The idea behind it is that your business plan needs to be very forward thinking. It needs to be so complete and so robust that anyone could run your brand or execute your promotion on your behalf and in your absence. And if you've got that level of sophistication built into your strategy, it's going to help you succeed. Remember, most brands are reactive and not proactive. When you're reactive, you make a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of things that slip through the cracks. If you're proactive, then you know how much product to produce to support a promotion long before the promotion starts. So think about how this can save you just a ton of money on its own. Your promotional schedule. It needs to be well communicated, and you need to leverage scorecards. Scorecards are a great project management tool. We'll talk about that in a minute. Throughout your entire sales funnel, your entire team, internal, external teams, to help maximize your results. And remember, when you're working with the retailer, retail execution, when you're thinking about your strategy, What are the things you want to have in place so that nothing slips through the cracks? And if something slipped through the cracks last time, well, let's make sure we don't repeat that again. What do we need to do to fix it? What are the things you need to constantly be thinking about to improve your trade marketing? Your promotional schedule. First of all, you notice on this example that I highlighted what the retailer needs to be thinking about. I mean, the retailer strategy, what the retailer's doing. And then I overlaid my strategy for my brands, for my products. And you can see here how I know exactly what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it and how I'm going to do it. So I can capitalize on what they're trying to achieve. And more importantly, I give them a strategy on paper saying, here's how I'm going to support my brand. And by the way, I'm going to make sure that I've got X amount of product in your back room to support it. I've got people scheduled and trained for the demos and whatnot. So, number 5, recap and assess the promotion with retailers. Very few brands do this. But when you do it, you need to do it and you need to be timely. Now, why does this matter? Well, I talked about a scorecard a minute ago. What gets measured gets done. If I've got a scorecard and I use this to make sure that we're executing properly, then I know exactly what was done, what wasn't done, and I have a way to go back in time and fix that, address that. So remember, a scorecard needs to be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. These are the things you want to put on there. Who's responsible for what, when, where, and how is it going to get done? So when you take a look at a scorecard example like this one, you can see how I'm able to leverage specific the scorecard so that I know exactly who's responsible for what, when it's supposed to be done, et cetera. So in this example, a launch scorecard. When does the category management or the new item presentation need to be ready? When does the retailer sell sheets need to be completed? When do the funds need to be loaded into merchandising? When do you need to have a team meeting to communicate what needs to be done, etc.? Every single thing that you need to do to ensure success with your promotion needs to be on your scorecard. And you need to identify who's responsible for it. And there are a lot of cool creative ways that I talk about in the module about scorecarding in the broker management course and the trade marketing essentials course. If you want to dig more into that, let me know. But what's cool about this tool is what holds everyone accountable. Now, kind of as a side note, this last summer, a lot of brands from all different sizes reached out to me asking me, how do they hold their broker accountable? How do they maximize their internal and external sales teams? So I created the broker management course based upon that. And the idea behind it was, how do I help these brands compete more effectively? How do I hold the brokers accountable? How do I create tools and resources that the brands can use to help their broker execute more effectively? So, and in fact, I actually spent a week with a couple of different brands. So this is something that's very top of mind. In addition, I should also say I spent did a broker management course webinar for the Category Management Association. We're talking about big brands. So this is something that every brand has challenges with. One other point, Madeline Hayden with Nut Pods on that podcast episode, her bottleneck was, how do you hold the broker, how do you hold the broker accountable? And my answer was, if I'm an employee and I'm not doing my job, you'd fire me, right? She said, yes. Well, then why don't you hold the broker to the same standards that you would hold me to? And she said, well, can I do that? Sure. And this is how you do it. This is how you hold them accountable. But more importantly, if you can use a scorecard and compare that, or she said, align that with your contract, then you're going to ensure, or make it easier anyhow, that you don't have invalid deductions. That you can go back into time and say, well, you know what? I delivered the product on this date. They started taking the discount on this date. Okay, those don't line up. How do you fix it? So more importantly, you want to leverage your trade management and partner with your retailers. And that's what this is all about. How do you help your retailer compete more effectively by leveraging the strength of your brand? Now, I'm in the process of putting together a course. I've kind of hinted at it a little bit, Trade Marketing Essentials. If you want to know more about it, it's going to be a soup to nuts trade marketing course teaching you everything you need to know about trade management. So if you want to know about it, go to the page on my the sales page on my in my school. I'm coming out with a lot of other resources and information about it. Of course, you can reach out to me. But the point is this: I'm a trade marketing expert, but I'm not an expert in your brand, and I want to know what I can do to make sure that I'm giving you all the value, the great value that you need or that you expect from me, so that I can help you succeed. So why does this matter? It matters because increased distribution and preferential merchandising, more efficient trade spending, maximizing promotions, category leadership. Remember, a category leader is any brand willing to step up and help their retail partners compete more effectively by leveraging the strength of the consumer that buys your product. Higher sales and profits. Everyone wants those, right? And then converting occasional customers into loyal shoppers. And the way you do that is you simply give shoppers what they want and you make it easy for them to find the products. And if you can help customers do that, if you can help your community do that, that's how you convert occasional customers into loyal evangelists. That's what everyone's looking for. So again, thank you too for being here. I really appreciate it. And again, I want to thank the partners that are helping me with this: ECRM, Range Me, Big Orange, Whole Foods Magazine, C-Suite Radio, and again, reach out to me and let me know if you've got any questions. And on this slide here, you can see how you can schedule 30 minutes with me, brandsecretsandstrategies.com/30MIN. And then, of course, you can get to the speaking page, brandsecretsandstrategies.com/speaking, to find out about future webinars and replays and so on and so forth. So let me check your questions out. Okay, so Stephanie says, where do I get this data to do the analysis anyhow? Great question, Stephanie. So the where you get that data, it actually depends on a lot of different things. It depends on which retailer you're looking at. So there's a lot more to this question. So first of all, you need to know what kind of data is available, and you need to understand what the retailer can help you with, et cetera. So if you can't get the data from a syndicated data provider like Spence, Nielsen, or RI, sometimes the retailer will share that with you if you're willing to apply resources to them, meaning having a talented category management manager come in and help manage or help guide them to grow sales in their category. But let's say that if you're in a market like, say, Denver, Colorado, and you're in Kroger, King Supers, you can get that data from Nielsen or IRI, and that data is robust and it's going to have all the insights you want, the causals, et cetera. If you're in Sprouts and you're in Denver, Colorado, and you want to know what's going on, unfortunately, there's really nothing that's going to help you. If you want to understand what's going on with Sprouts in a 5-state region, well, Spence can give you that kind of information. It's not as robust, but they're insights that you can use that can help the retailer understand how you're growing their brand. That's why I talk about a lot of times, if you're able to partner with the retailer, become a value-added resource, then a lot of times savvy retailers anyhow will share their internal metrics with you, because remember, you're helping them achieve their objective. And as a return, I've had a lot of retailers through my past share their insights with me, their POS data, and they shared it with me and no one else. So see, John says, thank you for asking that question, by the way. So John says, my broker does this. How do I know if they're doing a good job? Great question, John. I get this question a lot, and the honest answer is you don't. So how do you do this? Well, the way you do this is you help arm your broker with everything we've talked about here. Let them know, what are the contracts, what are the scorecard, what are you holding them accountable for, et cetera, who is supposed to do what, so that you know exactly what took place, when it took place, how it took place. So one, you need to arm your broker or whoever does the deductions for you, help them understand exactly what's going on so that they can be more prepared to advocate on your behalf. And the other thing is, you want to audit them. In other words, hold them accountable. So occasionally I would pick a few invoices, et cetera, and make sure that they're handling them correctly the way that you think they need to be handled. And this holds them accountable and it teaches them what you expect from them. So not only are you watching your bottom line, but you're helping to ensure and educate them that they're going to be doing a better job for you later. Thank you for the question. So Diane says, tell us more about the course mentioned. What does it cover? Oh, so okay. So the course, and thank you for asking that, Diane. The course is soup to nuts, everything you need to know about trade management. And I'll have some tools in there. Again, you're going to learn more about it on the Trade Management Essentials webpage. I'm actually in the process of building that. It'll be out shortly. But on that page, I'll have some really cool tools where you can, hopefully I'm still working on it, but be able to identify what is the value of promotion, what's the contribution back to the brand, et cetera. And you'll be able to assess if you promote at this level, what does that mean in terms of back to the retailer, et cetera. Those are the things I'm trying to put together. I'm trying to find the right resources to get that done. Sorry, I kind of got a little off tangent, but more importantly, this course is going to teach you the skills that you need to be successful. So if you're a big brand, and you've got really, really deep pockets because trade marketing software is horribly expensive, then you can perhaps buy the solutions that are going to manage your trade marketing. But just because you buy a Formula One race car doesn't mean you know how to drive it, right? So these strategies are going to help you understand what you need to know so you can maximize those skills. Now, if you're a smaller brand, that's going to teach you the skills that you need to compete at a higher level with the big brands. And remember, these are things that are not taught in the natural products business school, seminars, etc. These are things that are going to differentiate your brand. And by the way, if you can leverage these strategies at retail and you can help the retail partner understand that by doing this, you're helping them succeed, it gives you more of an opportunity to partner with them. So thank you for the question. Okay, so Megan says, where do I learn more about my shoppers? Good question, Megan. Okay, so the Turnkey Sales Source Strategies course. So the idea behind that is you really want to get to know them intimately. Now, if you can build an online community around your brand for your shoppers, that's usually the best place where you can have a one-on-one conversation with them, same as you would anyone else. If you could talk to them on a regular basis, one-on-one, and develop that relationship with them, that's another good place. On the podcast episode, I think it's 126, Dustin Finkel with K-Pop talks about how he uses in-store demos to talk to his current and future customers. Remember, you've got the undivided attention of a customer, and you get a chance to ask them, and why do you buy this stuff? Why do you like it? What's important with you? And that kind of understanding, that kind of intimate relationship that you get to develop with your customer is priceless. So you can do this through social media, and you can do this by just going to the store occasionally and talking to people that are shopping the category, not just your customers, but other customers as well, and getting to know them. And then do social listening to pay attention to what people are saying about your product and other products in the category. So kind of as a side note, one of the things I've done several times is I've had brands that I've worked with do a very informal survey on Facebook or someplace else, and then we've used those results. I baked them into a presentation for them. And even though it's statistically inaccurate or whatever, I'm able to use their ideal customers' language in their presentation that they give to a retailer. And it's a game changer in many cases. So, okay, thank you for asking. Greg, retailers have a set way of doing things. How do I get them to listen? Another great question. Thanks, Greg. I run into this all the time. The honest answer is they're not going to listen to you if you're just another brand. So you need to figure out everything you can about that retailer. Learn about them, get to know them, understand how they work, how they operate, who are the people that work for them, etc. Go onto LinkedIn, go into other social media profiles. In fact, I used to use LinkedIn all the time for this. I would go in and I would research everyone that I would run into, literally everyone I'd run into in their office. And I get to know something about them. So I could strike up a conversation. I would send birthday cards to people because I wanted them to know that I appreciated and valued them. You're not bribing them. You're just showing them that you appreciate them as a person, as someone that can help you or someone you can help them. And that's the other key point. If you understand what motivates them, and you can make it easier for them to do their jobs, then they're going to be a lot more open to helping you. So, how does this all work? Well, several years ago, when I was driving a DSD truck, you've probably heard me talk about this on the podcast a few times. As a retailer, I knew what retailers wanted. Well, I started when I was selling chips. I would challenge retailers to give me an opportunity to prove myself. And so the result was is that I was getting displays and end caps and things like that that Frito couldn't get. And we're just a small regional chip company. So this stuff works. It doesn't happen overnight. But remember, this is the long-term game you want to work on. So I hope that answers your question. See, David says, how detail-oriented does my promotional plan need to be, excuse me. So it needs to be as detail oriented as you possibly can. Remember, your plan, your strategy needs to be so detail oriented that anyone could walk in and fill your shoes in your absence and it'd still be executed flawlessly. And the more detail oriented it is, remember, you can go back and assess it better because you know what was done. You know now, excuse me, what you need to do to fix it or what you need to do to tweak it to make it better. Thank you for asking. Rick says, where do I get the promotional causals and what do they mean? Another great question. A lot more than we have time to cover here. So we'll check into the course that I'm putting together, the Trade Management Essentials course, Trade Marketing Essentials. That course is going to deal with a lot of that. But your promotional causals are, think of cause and effect. You do something, something happens, right? And so the promotional causals are if you lower the price, what happens to the sales? What happens to the volume? If you put it on an end cap or a display, what happens? So the promotional causals are those things. Now, they're not all created equal. What I mean by that is that if you promote in one store, you might get a different result than if you promote in another store. So there's a lot to this. It's a lot more than just going to a canned report, pushing a button and saying, give me the results. The more you can dig into this, the better you understand it. So, okay, I don't want to overwhelm you. So let's talk about it in baby steps. Identify who your biggest retailers are. Put your emphasis and your expertise and your time into working with that retailer and getting to and helping that retailer. And the strategies and the key learnings that you're going to learn from that retailer are going to help you with other retailers. And it's going to make it a lot easier for you then to look at the causals from another retailer and understand how they impact your sales. I hope that helps. Good question. Okay, next question. Okay, Janice says, will there be a replay? Yes, there will be a replay. This webinars are on demand, as are a lot of them. Some of them I'm going to put on my YouTube channel, some of them I won't. But these are snippets, actually snippets of the Trade Marketing Essentials course that I'm in the process of building. So part of the reason I'm doing this, selfishly, is this is the content I'm going to be sharing. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this content plus a whole lot more. It's a pretty robust course. And I'm putting it together and I'm assembling it. And I'm using this right now in your time and need with what's going on in the industry so that I can help give you a leg up. So again, I'm making this available to you now because I want to help you leverage these strategies today and not have to wait for whenever to be able to take advantage of them. But to answer your question, yes, this will be available. I'll have the link ready. Give me a couple hours after we finish the recording, okay? Thank you for asking. Okay, Joe says, thanks for doing these. They're an invaluable resource. Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate you. Thank you for letting me know. And again, that's why I do this. Is I get so much great feedback about the podcast and about the YouTube channel, et cetera. And again, please do me a favor. Help me get this in front of more brands. Help me do that by subscribing, sharing it, et cetera, and leave reviews, leave comments. Appreciate all your feedback. Thanks. Mark says, I don't have time or the employees to do all the things you suggest. How do I make this a priority? Great question. I hear this a lot. Remember a minute ago, I said, we'll start with the big brands, the big retailers rather, and then work backwards. Kind of a pay me now, pay me later kind of strategy. And here's what I mean by that. Not that you're hiring me, but what I'm saying is The money that you save today is going to give you more runway, which is going to allow you to hire people to do this for you. So you need to prioritize what matters most. Again, I would focus on the biggest retailer and make sure this is being done right. And as you start saving money there, then start investing in people that can help you. And you don't need to spend $1 billion to do this, but there are people out there that are going to be able to come in and run the reports, et cetera. I still am a firm believer that you need to understand how to read the reports. But in the interim, you could find contract people like me. There are a lot of other people out there in the world that can go in and help you on an hourly basis manage a lot of this. So reach out if you need more help. I hope that helps. But by the way, I get this a lot, especially now with what's going on in the industry. It's interesting. After Expo West was canceled, a lot of brands, all of a sudden they were afraid to spend money and they're afraid to, what do we do? How do we survive, et cetera. I get it. I've been in your shoes, and I know what it's like to be a founder. We need to help you spend your money smart and help teach you to work smarter, not harder. And that's what we're talking about here. So leverage your free resources, by the way, and that kind of help you get a lot of bandwidth. So, thanks for asking. Doug says, where do I go to learn more about the retailer? Another great question. So early on in my career, I took a course called Retail Penetration. And what that's about is how do you get to know your retailer? Well, I gave you a couple examples, use LinkedIn, et cetera. But spend some time shopping the retailer, literally. Go into their stores and find out how they lay their stores out. What's different about that retailer versus other retailers? Become an expert in all things at retailer. Talk to your peers in the industry. Join a networking group like Naturally Boulder, for example. Talk to others and get to learn who your retailer is and what your retailer expects from them. One of the free courses was done with Mathis Martinez, who used to be the national natural category captain for Kroger. And in that particular free mini course, he shares a lot of the strategies that he uses, what's important to the retailer, et cetera. So again, you've got that. You've got the opportunity to reach out to retailers. And then another thing I used to do is, now this is probably dating myself, is I would get the newspaper and I'd look at their promotions and I'd look to see what's important to them. So if you're looking at their promotion and you see what's on the first page, the second page, et cetera, the size of the ads, you get a feel for what's important to the retailer. So use those key learnings to help you understand what matters to the retailer. Now, a big part of the Turnkey Sales Story Strategies course has you go into retailers and learn how they merchandise your products, your category, and learn how they merchandise other products. And then understand, why do they do what they do? For example, do they put the private label to the left of the most popular product in the category? Why did they do that? What is their pricing strategy, et cetera? The more you can help your retailer, the more you know about your retailer, the easier it will be for you to work with them and help them understand that you're trying to provide real value for them. And then, of course, once they open up to you, then that helps as well. So time for a couple more questions. Cindy says, where do I learn about planning and forecasting? What resources do you recommend? Another great question. In the course that I'm working on, Trade Marketing Essentials, and I believe it was last week, I did a course about a webinar about about planning and forecasting in uncertain times. Actually, I think it's 2 weeks ago. And that's critically important. So all the stuff we're talking about now, the more detail-oriented you are, the better you understand the promotional causals, the better you understand your retail partner, the more effectively you're going to be at putting promotions together. And as you build your promotions, now you're going to be able to plan and forecast better. So I gave you an illustration earlier. Oh, I think I did. I don't know. Maybe it's on a different webinar where I had complete control of a promotion. And so there was a big chain that I think is a 120 store chain or something like that, where I was able to go in. I built a tool to allocate the product to every one of the stores. So I made sure that they had the product that they needed in each store, the right amount of product, which was different from every store, and that there was no out of stock at the end of it. It was a scary accurate tool. I'm really proud of it. But I was able to do that. And I was able to execute pretty much flawlessly. And what I mean by that is I understood the seasonality of the brand, of the category. I understood what their core customer looked like and how their customers shop. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. That's a week long lecture, if you will. But bottom line is, as you get to learning more about all the that we're talking about here, the more accurately you can plan and forecast, the more effective you're going to be at managing your trade marketing ROI. Hope that helps. And so Jim asks, do these strategies work well online? Yes. Thank you for asking that. They work especially well online. Let me explain. If you promote something at a natural retailer in a specific geography, then you can also promote that to the same customer base within that same market online. And now that if you're putting your promotions out there, radio, whatever you're using, social media, et cetera, you're driving traffic into that customer while you're also going to help build awareness online. Or you could build awareness from your online store into your traditional retail store. So maybe partnering with someone else. Think about creative strategies that you could leverage to help get your brand on, help promote your brand with other products. So don't think about ketchup and mustard or something like peanut butter and jelly, something like that. Think about creative strategies. One of the webinars of the podcast episodes I did recently, I was talking about that. So the example that I gave you was Once Upon a Farm and food stirs. And so if you think about it, it probably doesn't make sense right away, but food stirs sells a baby food that would appeal to new parents, right? Well, new parents typically kind of not ignore, but I mean, young other kids within the family feel left out. Well, Food Stirs sells baking mixes, etc. So while the parent is, when they're not taking care of the infant, the baby, excuse me, then they could spend time with the other children making a baking mix and making memories. And so a creative strategy that you could leverage to help the retailer, to help drive traffic in their store, et cetera. And when you promote like that, the lift, the incremental sales that you get off your brand will be even higher because you're leveraging the relationship of your consumer with other products and vice versa. So I hope that helps. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you again to my partners for helping me out with this, ECRM, Range Me, Big Orange, Whole Food Magazine, and C-Suite Radio. Again, my name is Dan Lohman from Brand Secrets and Strategies. Don't forget to check out the podcast, listen to previous episodes where I may share some of your most pressing bottlenecks, the YouTube channel, check out the courses, and I look forward to seeing you next week or in the next webinar. Thank you again.